Am I scuba diving again? As the title suggests, I'm still thinking, and it's been a rather long, summer-long decision. I'm wrapping myself up in a blankie because I've been training as if the answer is yes. The one thing that I needed to at least help myself advance my skills for my own sake, regardless of whether I am actually going to scuba dive this year, is I needed access to my pool. And my pool has now opened and I'm in full training mode. In fact, the reason why this vlog is rather late is because I was gonna film a training session as a vlog, but something intervened and here we are. That reminds me that one of the best ways to progress in any skill is to film yourself doing it. I've filmed myself dancing for the entire pandemic year, but prior to that I'd already started filming small snippets of me pool training for scuba diving. I watched those snippets again and I actually learned quite enough about my form and my technique. I learned enough that I know exactly what to work on now, as if very little time has passed in between. That's the whole point of recording. The records act like a progress journal, but better. Most people just write down rough notes, but I think the audio, visual element of vlogging helps flesh out and breathe life into what you're trying to describe. Of course, maybe notes are a more concise version, but for something as visual as swim technique, you really just should observe it if you had the good foresight to have filmed it from before. Maybe if I have a chance, I'll actually film in the middle whenever. That might be something that I consider. Other than that, I'm really acting as if I'm going to scuba dive this summer. So I've completely replaced the strict dancing portion of my exercise routine with strict pool training. The pool training I've decided on is something that takes place completely underwater for me. I submerge my entire head, including scuba mask, underwater, and I breathe either through my snorkel or using a combination of Wim Hof and David Blaine breathing. I need to be cautious though, because even David Blaine recommends against doing his breathing underwater. But in other ways, free divers are using these breathing techniques as well, just at a much more proficient professional level. For me, as my emergency target, I'm aiming to hold my breath for a minute while doing something strenuous with my body, either duck diving or swimming. I'm simulating one of the emergency drills for scuba diving, which is roughly that. You need to be able to hold your breath for a minute while swimming up to the surface in case you run out of oxygen at the depth that you're licensed to scuba at, which is 18 meters, 60 feet. The other factors of the ocean in Vancouver are the weather and the conditions. In many ways, they're related. The weather, cold, causes harsher, more difficult conditions than in the tropics. The pandemic has completely fucked with my scuba diving plan. I'd intended to test for my scuba diving license here because I'd tried various iterations of doing it abroad. I've always failed to do it abroad because I think I was just trying to do too much within too little time. The companies providing the excursions and training for shark diving and other such activities also force this upon me because they expect too much in too little time. I think part of the problem is that people should think of scuba diving as an extreme sport. In fact, one of the best scuba diving resources on the internet about Vancouver does denote scuba diving as such. Scuba diving is an extreme sport, and far too often people just rush into it on a tropical vacation. But I've encountered many people who have failed, including me. So with those failures, I had to reimagine the way I was either going to scuba dive or eliminate it from my life. Why did I decide to do it? It's a good question. I think fundamentally it's the extreme sport that opens up another world of possibilities in terms of wild animal trekking, wild animal encountering. The underwater world is about as foreign to people as space. I think the estimates are 90% of the world's oceans and water bodies are still a mystery. The wildlife underwater also reflects that because it's very different than terrestrial wildlife. Again, what's my thought process on this? I'm just spitfiring here because I found it the best way for me to work through my analytical process. Fun should be fun, but sometimes fun takes work. Scuba diving is one of those situations. The fun is fun. In fact, for all of my talk about space and the phenomenon of weightlessness, scuba diving offers a fairly similar substitute. In fact, most astronauts have trained extensively underwater to simulate what space would be like. What are my thought process on this? After testing and passing the PADI open water course in Vancouver, I can emphatically exclaim that it is probably one of the more difficult places that you can do this. So sometimes when I think that I helped myself by doing that, in many ways, if I could have just dedicated a specific time abroad to testing and passing, I could have probably done it equally somewhere else. The benefits of doing it somewhere else are that you are diving in more comfortable conditions. You're diving in warmer waters and assuming temperate weather, easier conditions. Of course, storms can always happen anywhere in the world, but I'm talking about normal, easy, vacation, tropical conditions. Maybe what I'm trying to question is knowing what I know now. Despite the fact that I had dedicated time that I set aside for the PADI open water course, I could have really equally done the same thing abroad when I was backpacking. The only thing that I tried to do was just insert it in before I knew what I was getting myself into. So then, reviewing everything I know up to date, the easiest course of action for me would have been to study, test, and pass my PADI open water course abroad in the tropics. In fact, PADI has something called tropical referral. In cold water dive sites like Vancouver, you can request to do all of the training and in-classroom work at home in your cold dive site. But you can then test in the ocean wherever you want. Of course, they call it a tropical referral because most people would choose to test in the tropics. That could have been something to consider. But now, given that I followed the course of action that I did, I probably have more confidence in my skills than I otherwise would have. But that's still leaving me questioning. I'm questioning whether that confidence is really just for if I were to scuba dive in easier situations. The answer is yes. If I'm considering the fact that I'm, again, diving in Vancouver's difficult circumstances, I'm back to square one again. Oh. Fun is fun. But sometimes fun is work. So where does that leave me with my dance progress? Earlier this summer, I already substituted my dance with the HIIT challenge, high intensity interval training. The rest of the summer, I'll just substitute it with scuba pool training. Even if I decide against actually scuba diving in Vancouver again, I still need to familiarize myself with water again. The Navy SEALs, for all of their famed training, have commented on how the water is what fucks most would-be soldiers up. However strong you think you are, however fast, etc., etc., you sink that motherfucker in the water and you learn something about him. His survival skills, his calm under pressure. Knowing that even those top tier physical specimens struggle in the water gives me some relief. Dr. Andrew Huberman, my favorite neuroscientist, asserts that you'll never really be motivated to do things the way we think we should be in popular culture. In fact, sometimes what you want to do will be tempered by fear and other forces against you. He suggests that you push through that and just make progress. Just take action. The problem is that I'm trying to decide whether the resistance is actually a warning to me that I need to improve my skills before I even consider scuba diving in Vancouver again. How will I know the answer to this question? Part of me resolving this question is just talking out my frustrations. Part of me solving and resolving this question is acting as if the answer is yes. The yes answer still has many side byproduct benefits. The side byproduct benefits actually could be main benefits enough. I enjoy swimming. Do I? The answer is probably yes, because before, when my pool was regularly opened, swimming would be my go-to for the summer session. In fact, the outdoor pool is actually open for more than just a summer session. It's open for almost half a year. But even swimming in itself is an activity that I have quite a lot of resistance to in the minutes leading up to it. I always haul my fucking ass into the pool, but the 5 to 10 minutes before I do it, every single fucking time, I'm fighting through it. I wonder if the reason is similar to the Navy SEALs. There's just something about water. For me, I've actually had a traumatic experience in water. I started learning to swim when I was young, age 6. I've subsequently swam up to lifeguard. I'm confident in the pool, but when I was that young, age 6, I almost drowned in a public wave pool. The circumstances are actually visceral and clear in my head, despite that experience being decades old. The water was choking me off, and I only had a brief reprieve every single time the wave pool lulled. I would gasp for air, and then the water would fill my nose, mouth, choke me off. I doggy paddled or flailed however I thought I could. I even managed to scream, but every time the water came over my head, everything was muffled. My mom was watching at the side of the pool. She was almost pushing my teacher into the water to rescue me. When my teacher seemed confused, my mom almost jumped into the pool herself to rescue me. But before anyone intervened, I somehow found my way to one of the side ladders, hoisted myself up, so technically speaking, I even saved myself. But for some reason, that experience does color my relationship with water. I've since gone on to more or less conquer it. Just like I've since gone on to more or less conquer the rough start to scuba diving. But I think that when those experiences happen, they're always there. The question is whether you can leverage those experiences to make you stronger. In some ways, those experiences make me cautious. I respect the power of the water, even indoors, so I know that I have to be skilled and knowledgeable. Hey! 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 I'm just wondering, I'm wondering whether trauma is the right word to describe those experiences, given that I had a completely new solution, which is to continue training in the thing. Have I actually already leveraged and reframed it? The memories can make me cautious. but do they prevent me from performing optimally? I think if they were to prevent me, they would have prevented me from further continuing on the activities. Since I've continued and subsequently acquired levels and certifications, I think I'm over it as much as I could be. Then overall, those experiences are probably positive because they just make me cautious. Caution is important in such an activity where even the fucking Navy SEALs struggle. Talking through everything is actually very helpful. I'm going to meditate about that. I really am. I think I've come to some piece of the puzzle that's going to help me along my way. My intuition is that I'm skilled enough to make a rough attempt at scuba diving in Vancouver, but I'd prefer to be more confident. I'll set a goal right now. Unless I'm able to hold my breath for a minute and simultaneously do something physically exerting, I'm gonna have to forego this summer scuba diving season in Vancouver. There. Now I have a standard to aim for. In many ways, I've already had that in my head from the very beginning, but verbalizing it makes it concrete and accountable. I'm accountable now. That means if I fail on that goal, I'm actually compromising my own safety. This is the standard to set, this is the goal to set, because it's the emergency situation that we train the most for. It's the emergency situation that actually requires you to perform something while holding your breath. So if I've identified that as being the main problem to solve, then the only reasonable, rational, and logical decision would be I either solve it or I have to move on. Vlogging has proved its mettle live in person just now. Before I spitfired all of this, I really had no clear idea. I had some inklings, but now I have a concrete action plan. So I'm happy that I stuck to my normal schedule. Moving forward for the vlog, I'll try my best to record some training sessions. That's also going to help me solve this problem potentially, because maybe something in my technique that I can observe on video is what's holding me back. I'm at a current 20-ish seconds. I have to triple that in order to reach my goal of scuba diving in Vancouver. So that's it. That's the goal. That's the plan. That's how I move forward.